The Grand Assembly Hall of the Velcron Empire stretched 3 kilometers in diameter, its crystalline dome refracting the light of 7 suns. 12,000 delegates from across the Andromeda sector filled the tiered seats, their chittering, growling, and electromagnetic frequencies creating a symphony of interstellar politics. At the central podium, barely visible against the vastness of the chamber, stood Ambassador Cara Venn, the only human in a sea of alien dignitaries. She gripped the edge of the podium, her knuckles white. The speech had been going well for the first 20 minutes. She'd outlined humanity's proposal for the frontier trade accords, navigated the complex web of diplomatic protocols, and even earned a few approving resonances from the Crystalline Confederacy representatives. But something was wrong. The hall's atmospheric controls, calibrated for Velcran physiology, were slowly suffocating her. The air was too thin, or perhaps too thick. Her vision blurred at the edges, and the translator implant behind her ear buzzed with increasing intensity as her neural pathways struggled to maintain focus. Earth's diplomatic corps had warned her, humans were fragile by galactic standards. Their biology was a patchwork of vulnerabilities held together by sheer stubborn will. The mining rights on Kepler 442b, Cara continued, her voice wavering, would be split according to the revised colonial framework, with 40% allocated to... The words died in her throat. The hall tilted. 7 suns became 14, then scattered into constellations of light. Her legs gave out. Ambassador Cara Venn collapsed. For a moment, silence gripped the assembly, a rare phenomenon in a gathering of species that communicated through sound, scent, and quantum entanglement. 12,000 beings watched as the human crumpled onto the platform, her small frame motionless against the polished obsidian floor. Then, from the youth section reserved for diplomatic cubs and offspring, came a sound that would echo through imperial history. Cub Tharik, barely into his 3rd molting cycle, threw back his head and howled. The Velcran cub's cry was primal, instinctive, a distress call reserved for pack members in danger. His vocal cords, still developing, produced a sound that cut through every frequency filter and translation matrix in the hall. It was raw. It was desperate. It was a plea for help, and it was contagious. Within seconds, every cub in the youth section joined him. 50 young Velcrans howled in unison, their voices rising in a cacophony of genuine fear. Then came the Thurian cubs, their crystalline bodies resonating with sympathetic frequencies. The Zarathi younglings added their telepathic screams to the chorus, creating a psychic feedback loop that sent shivers through every mind in the assembly. High Chancellor Vorthak, leader of the Velcran Empire and master of the assembly, slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. The sound boomed like thunder, but the howling only intensified. He tried again. Nothing. The cubs had entered a state of collective distress that superseded all protocol. Silence. Vorthak roared, his 4 mandibles clicking in agitation. Order in the Cub Tharik leaped over the youth section's barrier. His claws scraped against polished stone as he bounded toward the central podium, toward the fallen human. Security drones activated, their containment fields sparking to life, but Elder Mirax of the Velcran Council raised a claw to halt them. Let him go, she growled softly, her ancient eyes fixed on the scene below. Tharik reached Kara's side and dropped to all fours, his muzzle inches from her face. He whimpered, a sound of confusion and fear. The human's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, but her eyes remained closed. Tharik had never seen a being so small, so fragile. In his young mind, shaped by pack instincts and evolutionary imperatives, he recognized vulnerability. He recognized one of his own in need. The cub curled his body around Cara, creating a protective barrier with his fur and mass. His howl shifted to a low, rhythmic keen, a Velcran comfort sound meant to soothe the injured. Medical teams rushed toward the podium, but the assembly had descended into chaos. Adult delegates were standing now, some calling for their cubs, others demanding explanations, still others simply frozen in place by the unprecedented disruption. The Velcran Empire's most important assembly in a decade had ground to a complete halt. High Chancellor, Vorthak watched as human medical personnel, who had been standing nervously in the wings, sprinted to their ambassador's side. They carried oxygen, emergency medications, and portable environment controls. One of them, a young man with wild eyes and shaking hands, gently tried to move Cub Theric aside. The cub growled, his protective instincts flaring. "It's okay," the medic said softly, his translator converting the words into a series of pacifying tones. "We're helping her. We're packed too." Tharic's ears twitched. He studied the human's face, so similar to the one lying unconscious, and slowly backed away. But he didn't leave. He sat on his haunches, watching every movement with intense focus. The medics worked quickly. Oxygen mask, neural stabilizer, atmospheric compensator. Within minutes, Kara's eyes fluttered open. She gasped, sucking in Earth-normal air for the first time in an hour, and color returned to her pale cheeks. "What?" she croaked, her voice barely audible. Then she saw the cub. Tharic sat beside her, his golden eyes filled with concern that transcended species. Behind him, 50 more cubs watched from their section, silent now but vigilant. Kara reached out with a trembling hand and placed it on Tharic's muzzle. "Thank you," she whispered. The cub's tail wagged once. High Chancellor Vorthak cleared his throat, the sound reverberating through suddenly attentive speakers. "The assembly," he announced, his voice heavy with an emotion that surprised even himself, "is suspended for the day. Ambassador Ven's health takes precedence over all proceedings." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. No one objected, not even the Thurian representatives who had been vehemently opposed to the trade accords. As medical personnel helped Kara to her feet, Elder Mirax approached the podium. She looked down at Cub Theric, then at the human ambassador, then back at the assembled dignitaries. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "we have forgotten what the young remember instinctively, that some things matter more than politics, that vulnerability does not mean weakness, that a call for help should be answered regardless of species." Cub Theric howled once more, not in distress this time, but in triumph. The other cubs joined him, and this time even some of the adults added their voices. In the medical bay, hours later, Kara watched the news feeds. The assembly had been postponed, yes, but something else had happened. The incident had gone viral across 1,000 worlds. Videos of Cub Tharic's protective stance had been viewed billions of times. Humans, it turned out, weren't the only species that found interspecies loyalty compelling. The trade accords passed 3 days later with unprecedented, unanimous support. And when Ambassador Kara Ven returned to address the assembly, she didn't stand alone at the podium. Cub Tharic sat beside her, officially recognized as honorary pack brother to humanity, the first of his kind. The galaxy had learned something that day. Humans might be fragile, but they inspired fierce protection. And in a universe often defined by power and dominance, perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength of all.